Good morning. We are middle of the Mittler Rebbe's Maimer, Mika Hashem Alekenu, specifically on page 371. The Mittler Rebbe's Maimer is Maimer that is based on the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, and the Alter Rebbe Mittler Rebbe's Maimer is the foundation of the end of Hemshech Chaim Beis, and namely the theme of the divine soul transforming the animal soul, the wick transforming the oil becoming fuel that is drawn into the psil, into the wick, creating a love of God. So instead of it focusing on its natural, innate desires and survival of existence, the yesh, Nefesh Abam is transformed into a force of love for godliness, which is really what the Alter Rebbe Rashab concludes I am Beis with. The whole Arichis was how the divine soul educates the animal soul in that regard, regarding in the context of the understanding divine unity, how all of existence is part of the higher unity, the different levels of unity he discussed. Yichud Tata, Yichud Elah, and the combination of both of them, where existence itself is all divine. All this can be trained and educated. The animal soul can be trained and educated in. And so we're learning now in Mittler Rebbe's Maimer the source of that material. And what we learned yesterday in the last class, that despite the diametric opposite nature of the divine soul and the animal soul, God brings them together in a wondrous way, to the point that they can work together. So even though they're so different in personality, the divine soul can manifest its faculties within the faculties of the mind and the emotions and the behavior of the animal soul, that it too should be saturated with elokus, with godliness. As he explained on page 369, the mind, by explaining the ideas of, let's say, yesh ma'ayin, creation, these things that the animal soul, in a way, in a language the animal soul can understand, in emotions, that you can actually stimulate and arouse emotions that the animal soul should also have a love and passion focused on, aligned with the divine soul's passion for godliness. And all the actions we see and all the things a person does, instead of following their own desires, whether it's all klippas nega, all their activities should all be l'shem shamayim. He gave a dugma for it from Adam Arishin and the great Tzaddikim, whose bodies and souls were completely aligned, and to the point that like a seamless alignment, to the point of Mesiras Nefesh, they're ready to give their body, Mesiras Nefesh, like Rabbi Akiva, not just the neshama, but also the body. But for the rest of people that are beinanim, we are not on that level, but still, you could still educate through the animal soul, especially through its shema and tefillah and davening. You can cause that the animal soul be encompassed as well into the divine soul's love. And this is the ikar of Torah mitzvahs that was given to a person all his life, was to separate, clarify, refine, and repair the animal soul, which on its own is a mixture of good and bad, klipas nega, taruves tevara, and we have the power, and the avodah is to direct it, as he said, either through iskafia, by subduing the animal soul, controlling it, or even higher, through ishapcha, transforming it. Mahapach hashechel nehera, we transform the darkness to light, that the animal soul too should be able to reach its source, which is a source of darkness in the source, cheshach sisrei, and should all come revealed through the divine soul. That the divine soul reveals it all in the great potential in the animal soul. Okay. That's when neshama comes down below, not for its own repair, but for the animal soul. In the next paragraph, which we're in the middle of now, on page 370, 371, he went further and said that even more than that, it's not just transforming the animal soul, but through that becomes a yiridat sherech aliyah, an aliyah that the neshama itself would not have had on the highest levels of its own source. So it comes down in a yiridat gdela, me'igra rama, from a very high state all the way down to a bira mikta, to a low pit in this world, as he explained. And this yirid is for an aliyah gdela, that the neshama shouldn't just return to where it began. It should be elevated to a level even higher from where it originated. And that's indeed why the neshama comes back in Tchiyas HaMesim, not just to receive reward, but to be elevated to this higher level that can only be achieved when it comes down to this lower level. And the reason for that is because down below, the root of the crass and the of matter of the animal soul is rooted in Tayu, which is higher than Tikkun. In the midas of Tayu, which is higher than the level of Tikkun, of the Neshama, of the Nefesh Alikis. However, when it comes down, the animal soul can behave like an animal. Like he said, Terfis, Mazikim, like an animal that's very aggressive and even destructive. And that's because it's rooted in such a powerful place. And the objective is that the divine soul should harness that power, and instead of it being served for its own interest, it should be directed toward godliness. And with that comes an aliyah that's much higher than the neshama on its own. So the midas tivim the rucha behemi yesh ben behel mchinas keyach rav v'chazik b'yeser. The animal soul has within it a tremendous power, and therefore, when the mashem ma of the chachma of the adam, of the meaning of the nefesh alikis, refines it, it elevates to that level that is that intense level in the source and the root of the animal soul. So that's when you transform it, it transforms to a far greater light than the light of the divine soul on its own. V'zeu aliyas the neshama b'rida zu shemekabel eschar betuva v'dosha be'elam hazeh b'slapshus b'nefesh habamis, to refine and to transform it b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha. To this transformation. Okay, that's where we stopped. Middle of the page, 371. We'll continue learning now. Middle of 371. The pages can be found at ayinbeis.com. And so let's go. V'zeu hatam shegozru. How do you read this? V'zeu hatam shegozru eimer. Just trying to understand the language. This is the reason that I guess that they decreed. They said that Shabamokim Shabalei Teshuva Eimdim Tzaddikim Gemurim Ein Yechem Lamed Klal. That the place where Baalei Teshuva stands, Tzaddikim Gemurim cannot at all stand in that place. A Baal Teshuva has a quality that a Tzaddik Gomer can never go there. Well, he doesn't say never. In Yechem Lamed Klal. Ki Baal Teshuva Mahapech. Ki Baalei Teshuva Mahapchim Cheshech Le'er. Beralatev Lamata. Because the Baal Teshuva does something that Tzaddik doesn't do. He transforms darkness to light, from the evil to good, Lamata below. That's what he does it below. Lev Nishbar Beruach HaBehema Dafka. Through the broken heart that he experiences, the remorse, and through his own introspection, through his own work, hard work, in the Ruach HaBehema Dafka. That's what makes him a Baal Teshuva. He's engaged with the animal soul. He had given into it. And now he is returning by transforming it through his tshuva, Sheyehupach mecheshach le'er. That, and this he does below, that transformed the darkness to light, gam lamayla b'sharsha b'tayu, shekodam l'tikun. So he does it below, and this also affects how it is above, because remember, the nefesh abamis is rooted in tayu, which is higher than tikkun. So the fact that he does that, he invokes and draws down from that higher level. Shemepnei zeh tzaddikim gmurim sheshoshem be'er de tikkun ein yechel lamed b'medreges bal tshuva klal. And that is the reason that tzaddikim gmurim, their root is in era tikkun, of tikkun. They cannot be on that level because that level comes from tayu, which is higher than their level. So initially, before the Baal Tshuva does Tshuva, he's obviously in a lower level because he's succumbed and he's under the control of the animal soul. But when he does the transformation, so he doesn't just reach a high level of Kedusha, he reaches even a higher level. So it's dafka by coming down below, where there's darkness, with an animal soul very powerful. That dafka, that leads and propels him all the way to a level that's higher than Tzaddikim Mum, the level of Tayu, higher than Tikkun. He is batlim mitzias ha'er shelahem sham. Most likely that means because the Tzaddikim Gemurim will be nullified compared mitzias ha'er shelahem sham. Compared to Tayu, they are not. They're the isbatlu mitzias ha'er shelahem sham. The language needs to be explained exactly what that means. To say they're higher than the Baal Tshuva is higher is understandable. What does it mean? Let me read it again. Sheshashim be'er de tikkun. En yichem lam b'mdegel Baal Tshuva. Kiz batlu ha'mitzias se'er shelahem sham. Yeah. They will be his batlu. They'll be like in. They'll be nullified, or they'll be. You could say in awe even. Compared to the Ur of Tayu, the Ur of Tikkun compared to the Ur of Tayu. So like when you say that, like a, for example, the candlelight in the light of the sun. So it's bottle compared to greater power, greater light. Like it says in reference to Moshe, that Moshe merited tshuva not at the end of his life, right before his passing. And the same we talk about Rab Meir. Rab Meir, they spring down below from another Maimer. They write Raya Mehemna or Mashiach. Raya Mehemna would refer to Moshe Rabbeinu, Raya Neman. So I need to look up what they mean. It says they take into another Maimer. I thought initially meant Rab Meir Yasel Tzadi Gomer Baalei Tshuva. Unless he means, they say below Mashiach. So we learned in Ayin Beis, if you remember, Mashiach Osel Savat Tzadikai B'Tiyufta. So maybe he's referring to that, and Reish Mem is, they write below, Raya Mehemna, and another manuscript that says Mashiach. So that would make sense, that Mashiach Yasel Tzaddik Gum Baalei Tshuva. He'll make Tzaddik Gumurim Baalei Tshuva. In other words, it's an additional achievement. A Baal Tshuva is higher than a Tzaddik. We just learned. But then there is a level that even a Tzaddik reaches the level of Baal Tshuva, like we say Moshe at the end of his life. And now he's bringing maybe Mashiach. Well, that's what he'll do for Tzaddikim, make them into Baalei Tshuva, which would make the connection here to Ayin Beis even deeper, because in Ayin Beis we spoke about it at length much earlier in volume 3. I need to look into it a little more. I want to see the sources that they cite below, other places, which I don't have in front of me right now. But suffice to say that Moshe, before his passing, was zeicher to be Baal Tshuva. It means he reached that higher level. V'chein, and the Reish Mem needs to be understood what that means. Raya Mehemna would be a little odd, Because what does it mean? That he made Tzaddikim know about Teshuva, Moshe? So that's why the second manuscript, Mashiach, may make more sense. That's what I'm saying right now. But as I said, I'll look it up and let you know my findings. Okay. The Tao. The Maven. So as I pointed out, the Mittler Rebbe uses that expression quite a few times. Okay. So I'll stop here for any questions.
Rabbi Jacobson, is it fair to say that, or is it the correct statement to say that a Baal Teshuva, obviously in the process of becoming a Baal Teshuva, goes through a lot of struggles and a lot of pain, overcoming? As Tzaddik Gamor or Tzaddikim obviously don't have that, but at the end of their life or towards the end of, they basically from Shamayim, they give it to them to elevate them to that level without the struggle. Is that fair to say?
It's correct. I mean, that's one of the aspects. Yeah, one of the aspects
you
of
study Gemara. You study Gemara. You could study the same daf 50 times, and all of a sudden, like something flat, and they give it to you. They say it's not your intelligence. They'll give it to you. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, like tzaddikim, because they're pure, because they're basically bato at the but they obviously they don't want to get punished for it. Not punished, but meaning they still want to reach the same level from Shemaim. They just give it to them rather than having to go through the struggles of about Teshuva. That's all I'm asking.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. If it says somewhere, but based on what he's saying here about a tzaddik doesn't have what a Baal Teshuva has. The Gemara says that tzaddik does not reach the level of a Baal Teshuva.
Even at the end, like we just spoke about, like
only Moshe Rabbeinu was given. Moshe is a specific exception.
Oh, it's being specific. I thought it was tzaddikim in general. Okay, thank you.
No. Mashiach will bring that level to tzaddikim. That's what I said, and that we learned in Ayin Beis. He explained at length how that's the process of that. So if you want to learn how that happens, I would refer you to earlier in Ayin Beis. If you want the page, I can give it to you. If you want to look it up.
Thank you.
It's earlier in Ayin Beis. Mashiach Ashla v'Savet Tzaddikai b'Tiyufta. You want the page?
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. It's essentially, let's see, where is it here? Basically, page 1342 and on. Spoke about it earlier also, but 1342 and on.
Thank you so much.
I want to see one thing. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so let's continue. V'zeu gam ken atam, and this is also the reason, shegozru eimer. So it's an expression, meaning it's basically what Chazal have dictated. The yofish shah achas b'tshuva ma'asim tevim be'elam hazeh mikol chay elam haba. So the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that 1 hour of tshuva and good deeds in this world is yafa, is more powerful, more beautiful, is greater than entire chay elam haba, entire life of the world to come. It's a pretty big statement. Ba'afal pi she'elam haba ein rak Ein ba rak b'schar ha-mitzvahs be'elam hazeh dafka. And even though Elam Haba doesn't just come as reward for the mitzvahs in this world, and that's why we say Kol Yisrael Yeshlam Chelik Le'elam Haba. Every Jew, every Yisrael has a part in the world to come. So if you were saying Elam Haba, if you were saying Elam Haba is a reward for the world, for the Aveda here, so then you could say, okay, so the Aveda in this world is greater than the reward that we get afterwards. Fine. But it's more than that. It's not that correct. It's not just a schar. Elam Haba is a tremendously powerful level that every neshama merits. Since Elam Haba is more than just reward, it's a whole level of divine experience. So why is it greater? Why should the Maisim Tevim, the actions that we do, the Teshuva Maisim Tevim in this world be greater than that level of divine revelation? Ela tzorich leimer, mishum the Maisim Tevim be'elmeh. So you have to say, because the Maisim Tevim, the good deeds in this world, be'elam hazeh, nasa b'tziru fatshuva shekodma l'Maisim Tevim. That's the expression. It's not just Maisim Tevim. It comes tshuva Maisim Tevim. That the Maisim Tevim come combined and joined with the tshuva that precedes the Maisim Tevim. Come on up, tshuva Maisim Tevim. That's the expression. Sheshor shebe'era elam atzmei b'bchinas hateyu. Be'era helam atzmei, I'm sorry. Sheshor shebe'era helam atzmei, atzmus b'bchinas hateyu. It's rooted in the helam atzmus, the core concealment in the level of teyu. So tshuva, because it's the tshuva. Remember, tshuva means that we come from a situation, from a dark state to illuminating, a transformation. That's the key here. So it's not just that our good deeds bring reward in Elam Haba. It's a whole nother paradigm that the tshuva introduces. Shazeu ikra Elam Haba she'ein ragilei helam ta'atzmis hanikra cheshach sisik yedua. So you have to say what he means here is that Elam Haba is only a gilei helam compared to the root of it in the helam itself of tehu. So therefore, Elam Haba compared to Toyu is not nothing. It doesn't come close to it because Toyu is reached through Tshuva Dafke. He doesn't say those words exactly, but you have to say that's what he means. So Ikra Elam Haba she'ein ragilei helam da'atzmis hanikra cheshach sisrei kiyadua. It's only a gilei helam, whereas the helam itself is what we reach through Tshuva. And that's what it says in Zer. We read it earlier in the previous page. That someone does not transform darkness to light, cannot merit. He does not have a part in that world to come, in Elam Haba. Shua Elam Haba, Mishum Daha, Baha Talia. Because it's one is interdependent on the other. The behepach cheshach shalamat meral tev tshuva. It is dafka when you transform darkness to light through tshuva the below. Oz dafka yilech chelik be'elam haba kanal the dal. Dafka then he'll have a chelik be'elam haba kanal. I think I have to correct myself. What he's saying here is even more than what I said before. He explains like this. That is dafka the tshuva below that provides us with a level that's higher than Elam Haba. But it's also that Elam Haba is a revelation that comes only through our tshuva ma'asim tevim. So he's going even further. It's not just that it's higher than Elam Haba, it causes Elam Haba because Elam Haba is a revelation of that level. But how could you get there? So the Zohar says through Teshuva Ma'asim Tovim, if you want to really have Elam Haba in the fullest sense of the word, meaning Elam Haba that reveals the Gilead Helam of Cheshach Sisrei, you need to have Teshuva Ma'asim Tovim. So there's two statements here. The simple meaning that Teshuva Ma'asim Tovim is higher than Elam Haba because of the reason we just said, but there's also that Elam Haba is a result of it, because it's Haba Hatali. It's only when you transform that you can reach that level of Elam Haba. It's an interesting additional dimension to this. And answers that question that he asked before, that since Elam Haba is not just Tzchar, it's a whole revelation, and that's why Kol Yisrael Yesh Lam Chelik Elam Haba. So why Yigdal HaMaisa Yesem Min HaSchar? Because the Maisa comes through Teshuva, and Teshuva is higher than Elam Haba and also provides for Elam Haba, that the way to get there is through the transformation of darkness to light. That's apparently what he says here. Okay, so bottom line is, this ends this paragraph. So this paragraph came to add that the Nefesh Abamis, the Aveda in transforming the animal soul, Teshuva, reaches higher than the Neshama, the Nefesh Alikis on its own, which of course is an important theme in the Maimer, the Chanukah Maimer from the Alter Rebbe, that we'll soon see that the oil produces more fire than the wick, because it comes from Tayu. If you recall, in Torah Air, he said it. He spoke about it here on top of page, top of page 39C. He said, because it comes ikrim elam ateshu lamaila maila from tikkun, from the kav amida of tikkun. The kav amida, like the wick, is tikkun, never shall it kiss. But the tayu, yeah, and if you shall lay high, yeah, he said that here on top of the page. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, when he says Olam Haba, is it including Tchias HaMesim, or is it divided? Is he talking about the first part, not the second part?
Well, Elam Haba usually has two meanings, either Gan Eden, and that's for sure that it's higher than Gan Eden, and the second is Tchias HaMesim. It apparently, I would say, even according to the second interpretation, we get to Tchias HaMesim through the Aveda in this world. So that makes sense. In other words, Elam Haba is not just what the Rebbe, ultimately the Rebbe is saying, it's not just Gan Eden as a reward, but it's also the ultimate level of divine revelation. But you can't get to it without the work that we do in this world. So according to this, you actually can interpret Elam Haba both ways. Gan Eden, for sure, it's higher than. But it's even higher than Elam Haba is in Tchias HaMesim. Like he said before, Tchias HaMesim, he said, is that higher Gili that comes dafka through the Aliyah, through our Aveda today. That's why we merited Tchias HaMesim. Yeah.
Still sounds like you read that, because we want to have that time in the world.
What's a Yerida? Which level is a Yerida?
If you're including Tchias HaMesim, then it's still if you want that 1 hour doing Torah mitzvahs, then it seems like a Yerida, because you crave something that you had, and you're not at the highest level. I would think it makes more sense.
Why not? Tchias HaMesim is the fulfillment and realization of the Gilead Atzmus that Aveda in this world achieves.
Exactly. So that's why I would think that it wouldn't, that whole thing about wanting to be an Olam Hazeh wouldn't really.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean wanting to be an Olam?
Olam Hazeh, to do Torah mitzvahs, is you rather have an hour.
But the only way to get to Tchias HaMesim is the only way to get to Tchias HaMesim is through Teshuva Ma'asim Tovim in Elam Hazeh.
But when you're there, how do you say something like that? That's all.
When you're where? I'm not clear.
When you're at Tchias HaMesim,
that's the result.
You're still craving.
That's like after Mashiach comes, when we'll benefit all that we achieved through thousands of years of hard work will then be realized.
Yeah, so you think that there'd be no more craving at that time. That's all. That's all.
There will be craving to go higher levels. There's always higher.
Yeah, but no craving to be an olam hazeh to do Torah mitzvahs. That's I can't.
We will be. Tchias HaMesim is an elam hazeh. It's souls and within bodies.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but we won't be. We don't have Torah mitzvahs, and I still can't understand at that point.
I'm not sure what you're asking me. Will there be Torah mitzvahs after Tchias HaMesim? You asked me.
No, of course not. No, I don't think.
One second. That's not so simple. Who said not?
Torah, not mitzvahs. No.
Not so simple.
Okay.
A mitzvah is a connection to God, so there'll be connections to God. The question is what form it takes. Any other questions? Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, we still have to understand, and now we move to the next page, 372. How? How do you harness, tame, and educate, and train, and harness the animal soul to come to such a level when the animal soul is the exact opposite on its own? That still needs to be explained. He said you could, and God made it that the divine soul can influence the animal soul, but how do you actually do it? So now he's going to address that, and that's the question on page 1366 in Ayin Beis, 1466 in Ayin Beis, that the Rebbe Rashab never answers. So now that's where this plays such an important role, what we're learning now. Because what the Rebbe Rashab does say is a lot of an introduction that the Rebbe taken from the Mittler Rebbe that will ultimately answer this question. So he says, Achihine yesh leimer. Yesh lahavin, rather. The Mittler Rebbe says, but now we need to understand. Ma'ayin yesh koyach la'odam, page 372 on top. From where does a human being have the power sheyavel madrega gdela kazes to come to such a high level, benefesh alikis, in the divine soul, ad sheyuchel lahafich gam hakechus nefesh habamis b'seichel u'midas sheba, to the point that it can transform also the faculties of the animal soul in its intelligence and its emotions. Af mera l'teiv, to af, even from ra, from evil to good, shenikre hipuch chashechel nehera, which is called the transformation of darkness to light. Where do we have this power? We said we could do it, and it's doable, but where do we have this power? Ukamesha kasa b'shnei yitzarecha mamish. Chol v'alcha b'shnei yitzarecha, that you can love God with both yitzers, the yitzer tov and the yitzer hara. How? In the Rebbe Rashab's words on page 1466, he said, Eich yichel haneshama lifel b'habitl b'nefesh habamis, shu b'tekev hayeshes denege hepech habitl legamri. Before that, he asked the question, Mipnei ma'u b'keich haneshama dafke. So these questions that we learned in Ayin Beis, this is the operative question here, as well as in Torah from the Alter Rebbe. And this is a critical question because this lies at the heart of the last 10, 11 pages of Ayin Beis, all come to answer this question, which is what brought us to learn the Mittler Rebbe in the first place. That's why I'm making such a big emphasis of this, because this is the heart of what we learned at length, and now we're going to learn in the Mittler Rebbe. We'll go back to Ayin Beis afterwards to see how this informs the Ayin Beis and how we understand Ayin Beis so much better after learning the Mittler Rebbe. So this is a big part of everything we've learned, was to come to this punchline. Okay, clear? This is very, as I said, critical piece in the whole juxtaposition and linking with Ayin Beis discussion here. Okay, so he says like this. Ba'af al pi, sheyesh keach v'chochme d'shem mad d'tikun, levar l'bchinas ban d'teyu. We said earlier that the nefesh halikis, which is driven by the keach of chochma, of atzilus, of tikun. So the chochma of shem mad d'tikun has the power to be mevarer b'chinas ban d'teyu. The behema, ban gematria behema of teyu. After sheresh hateyu l'mayla min hatikun canal. Even though the root of teyu is higher than tikun, but still the way we were created, the way God instilled in us the power, that we have the ability that tikun should be madvarer, meaning ma should be madvarer ban. And the raya, we learned before that Adam ki yakriv mekem carbon, Lashem, a person has the power to be makriv a carbon, a behema. The raya mekarbon a behema al gabe mizbeach. The proof of it is very straightforward. A human being has the power to be mekarev, to be offer an animal on the altar. The human being has the power to be mavar in this behemoth, and to cause it that the scent and the aroma of the carbon should be a pleasant aroma that goes up to Havaya, to the Eibishter, and cause him nachas ruach. And also the opposite, God forbid. Well, not God forbid, sorry. That's a carbon that elevates carbonella to the Eibishter to give him reich necheach. V'chein lehepuch, also the opposite. Hariyesh b'keich shel carbon. The opposite means the carbon has the power to do something for the human being. Just like the human being brings the offering, the carbon, the opposite, the carbon does something for the human being. The behemoth, yes, the carbon, the behemoth, the Adam. It has the power to forgive and atone for the sin of a human being. So in other words, a human has the ability to bring a carbon, and the carbon has the ability to heal and atone. Ukamoy hamaychel, and the Mittler Rebbe adds another parenthesis, like food. Shemesiv kayach b'seichel shebemeach. You see a person eat something, even though the food is, so to speak, like the behemoth, inferior to the human, but we see it has the power to increase our energy and our seichel. Shebemeach v'ala lechem d'tzemeach yichya adam. He says lechem levadi, lechem adam, lechem d'tzemeach, from the world of tzemeach, bread that grows from grain, yichya adam, sustains a person. V'chein b'karban behema. This is all a parenthesis, by the way, just for the record. That's semeach. V'chein behema, v'chein b'karban behema, oila l'reich necheach. A carbon behema goes up a reich necheach. L'hesiv eir b'meichen u'midas da'atzilis. So just as the human brings the carbon in turn goes upward, and it increases divine energy in the meichen and midas of atzilus. So physically, it's like food gives the mind strength. The maila, the behema also goes up and increases the energy in meichen and midas of atzilus. Shezeu shem havaya atzilus kidua. That's reich nechech havaya. That's the name of havaya and atzilus. It's referring to the carbon increasing that divine energy. Because the ein rak mitzat sheresh habehema b'teyu shekadom l'tikun kanal v'dal. And this is all due to the fact because the root of the behema is in teyu, which is higher than tikkun, that precedes tikkun. So he's gone back and forth here. Let me explain what he's doing here. He's still asking a question. He asked the question: how is it possible for an neshama Where does it have the power to transform? The Nefesh Abamis, she says, but we know that the Koach HaChochma of Shema has the power to refine and transform Ban. Just as we see a human being brings a carbon. Yes, it's true, the carbon also elevates the human being, like we just learned, because it's Torah Kodem L'Tikun. Ve'im kol zeh, tzarich sheyavur tchila b'chinas habehem al yedei Adam. But still, the carbon is the offering, atones for the person and strengthens him. After, first you need to refine the animal. In other words, first the human being has to bring the animal. The animal doesn't just do this on its own. First the Adam ki yakriv, it says. The person brings the carbon, and the carbon in turn gives something to the person because the carbon is rooted higher than the person, like food that sustains us. But it all begins with the human being, the chachma dafke is beriru. Because birur, refinement, comes dafke from chachma of tikkun. So we see from this that the person elevates the animal. Af b'maichel. The same is true with food. The human being eats the food, then the food gives you strength. And after the person refines and clarifies and refines and breaks down the food, digests it, then the behemoth and the tzemeach, whether it's an animal or tzemeach in the world of vegetation, then they'll elevate the person in turn. So the Mittler Rebbe is basically qualifying and saying that we still need explanation how it's done. The fact is, the parenthesis tells us that you could do it. A person has the power to do it because Shema has the power to be Mvar Shem Ban. And though Shem Ban or Toyu is higher than Tikkun, but you get that highness dafke through that higher level, dafke through the Aveda Lamata. But it still did not explain, but we still don't know where that, so we know we have the power, but what's the process of how this is done? That's the question that's on the table here. So the parentheses came to clarify some of the dynamics, but still has not answered the question. And now he's going to explain, and this is coming straight from the Alter Rebbe's Maimer, and of course you'll recognize immediately Ayin Beis on page 1466. It quotes part of this. So he says, "Va'amna ma'inyanhu." What's the answer to this big question? This is the reason that the men of the great assembly, or Mesaked, they established Pesukei D'Zimrah. Pesukei D'Zimrah is the songs of song, the verses of song that precede Shema. And after Pesukei D'Zimrah, which begins by Baruch Shamar, some say by Hoidu, but I could put him around there, and goes where? Then it follows by two brachas that we say before Shema. Shtayim lefaneh b'yetzer er v'achar kach avaselam. So there's the two brachas we make after Yishtabach comes yetzer er, then avaselam, and then we say Shema. So he's now going to explain why did the men of the Great Assembly, Anshe Knesset Sagdela, designated that way. And the answer briefly is because B'yes should call Pesukei D'Zimrah, being that the whole Pesukei D'Zimrah, those verses of song, Medaber B'Shvachim, talks about the praises, She'emrim HaMalachim, the praises that the Malachim praise God with, the angels, the Malachim of Elam Asiyah, Halus min Hashem min Hashamayim, Halus Hashem min Hashamayim. They praise God from heaven. L'kach nikra halalu loshen yahal eir. That's why it's called yalu halalu from the word yahal, shining light, illuminating light. Shaydeze meir eliki gam lechesher de klipas nega shebeguf. It illuminates, it radiates, in order to draw that eliki, that these angels, when they're praising God, we draw that eliki also in the darkness of the klipas nega of the body. So we say Pesukei D'Zimrah because we're invoking these praises in order to draw light into our physical being. Begrenum with the throat. It means comes down to into our beings. Dafka. From the mind should go to the heart through the throat. And that causes, like it says afterwards, a sword of two edges, in order to cut down, basically to eliminate the chitzenim, to receive their energy from higher levels. You want to eliminate the negative. That's what a sword does. It cuts, it chops off this ability for the clippers to receive energy. All this comes from Pesukei D'Zimrah. Afterwards, Shayich Inyan Habrocha v'Ha'idah. He's explaining basically selections of Pesukei D'Zimrah to explain the purpose of it all, is in order to influence the animal soul, to weaken the animal soul, and to ultimately harness it for Avos Hashem. So he says like this: once you've done that part of cutting down the enemy, so to speak, weakening its the strength it gets for its own selfish desires, then you come to Bracha ve'edah k'mashkosavei vorach David. At the end of Pesukei, that's before Az Yashir. Like explained elsewhere at length. Then the Rebbe Rashab, the Mittler Rebbe, is going to continue and explain how the two brachas before Shema directly address the animal soul. I'm going to stop here because of time, and then going to continue with a lengthy discussion how Shema, ultimately, in this process, Pesukei D'Zimrah, the brachas before Shema, and then Shema, are all part of the way the animals, the divine soul, tames and ultimately transforms and harnesses the animal soul. That's what we're going to be learning now. So this was definitely mentioned in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer and the Rebbe Rashab and Ayin Beis, and I'll point that out in the next classes. But I'm going to stop here. Just wanted to get into it. So bottom line is that the divine soul has the power to harness the tremendous power of the animal soul, but it takes work. And now we're discussing what's the work. That work is the davening that we do every day that gives us that ability. Because tefillah is like a war, right? Tefillah is a battle with the animal soul, and the divine soul there to tame and train and harness the animal soul. So we'll learn about this next classes, but I'll stop here. Firstly, if there are any questions, please. No questions? Okay. So then we stop here. Okay, about 2/3 down. Excuse me?
It actually corresponds with today's Hayom Yom. That you should know the Eibishter was meant that even if you reach the highest levels in Chassidus, but the idea is how I should bring it down to Avdeu B'Lev Sholem. you could think you're learning about Atzilus and high levels, so what does it have to do with me? But this is our job to bring it down to Atzilus applies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Rabbi Jacobson, also, it's like it looks like it's like these parallel concepts we learn in Ayin Beis. It also applies even in the daily prayer, like the whole concept of mutwal murgish muskol, or the whole sweetening of the water. It all looks like it parallels these levels. That even though yes, we're talking about emotionally as a baby, but then again, in our daily lives, in the morning when we daven, we start as if it was we were like an infant and work our way up. You know, all these like it. I almost feel like Rebbe Rashab took us through like three main tracks of the same concept. One was the sweetening of the water. One was this the maturation of the emotions, and then the other one was this very concept we're speaking of right now, the whole concept of Shema and the Malachim and all that. They're all parallel. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, overall, yes. Overall, it's all connected. I would say so. Okay, so we'll stop here around 3/4 of the way down page 372. And we'll continue in the next class.